also a track and field, on the track, cross-country track and field team. He takes French, so he's obviously aspiring to be like Catherine Tucker Wyndham in his language skills. If you heard Donald speaking, he turned out well for her. So he's in the drought flow. On the academic team, he's participated in numerous storytelling competitions, and in plays with the Southeast Kentucky Community College. He performed at the National Appalachian Studies Conference, and he is a member of the Lynch Church of God youth group, so please welcome Noah.
I'm going to be telling The Preacher and the Snowstorm by Appalachian storyteller Pam Hawthorne. Now, back in the olden days, there were a bunch of country churches spread out all over the South. And there was one right across Pine Mountain near where I'm from. Now, they had themselves a brand new pastor straight out of the seminary. And his name was James Friar Lawrence. The friar being because of his devout love for fried chicken. Now, the Saturday before his first sermon, there came a huge snowstorm. Now, there was snow so thick you couldn't see out the window, and you could barely see 3 foot in front of you when you walked outside. But he was determined that he was going to make it to church that Sunday. So that Sunday morning came, and he got outside, and he walked up those few yards to the church straight from the parsonage, but it felt like miles. The snow was up above his boots, and he walked up there, and he went into church. He walked over and got him a good fire started in the potbelly stove. In a few minutes, the church was nice and warm. Now he waited, and he waited, and he waited. And it seemed like no one else was going to brave the weather to come to the Sunday services. And just about the time when he was going to head back home, he saw this old feller coming up the hill. So he went to the door to greet him. And the guy, he come in, he took off his jacket and boots and was warming himself by the fire. And the preacher, he walked up and said, "Friend, I think we should just have a season of prayer since there's no one else here, and I can save the sermon for next Sunday. That way I won't waste it." Well, that cattle farmer, he looked at that preacher and he looked him up and down. And he said, "Well, preacher, I'm just an old cattle farmer, and I don't know nothing but raising cattle. But I do believe that if I had 100 head of cattle and only one came to eat, I'd feed her." Well, that preacher, he had no answer to that. So he walked up to the pulpit. And as he was approaching the pulpit, he thought this might be a good chance to use some of the knowledge he learned at the seminary. So he opened the Word of God and pulled out all his notes, which weighed at least 5 pounds. And he got ready to preach. And when he preached, it was one of the best sermons that was ever spoken. He would preach about fire and brimstone, and he preached about heaven and its golden streets and its pearly gates, and he preached about that other place, a place of anguish and torture, much like the University of Tennessee football program. And he went straight from Genesis to Revelation. He went on for a good 2.5 hours for this preacher. And in this sermon, he would run all over, and then he'd jump up and down, and then it was over. He walked back up to the pulpit, he closed the Word of God, and he put his notes up. And he walked up to that old farmer, and he said, "What did you think of my sermon?" And he extended his hand out to him. Well, that old farmer, he got up, he looked that preacher up and down again, and he thought a moment. And he said, "Well, preacher, I'm just an old cattle farmer. I don't know anything but raising cattle. And if I had 100 herd of cattle and only one come to eat, I'd feed her. But not the whole truckload of hay at one whack." Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. In my career as a pastor, I've both heard that sermon and preached that.